Hello, everyone. I'm sure there's 100 people out there. We're all right. Just wait a tea. Welcome. December, first day of December. I think we've all got an advent calendar. So, very excited. Today we're going to be talking about a little bit of empathy and determination. So we're doing those leadership traits, and this is like a pair again, empathy and determination. So we're going to talk about those. That's going to be what we're doing. But I've got a cup of tea. I've also got a bourbon. We have a classic biscuit. Everybody likes a bourbon though, I think. I ask a lot of biscuit-related questions to my delegates, and bourbon seems a very popular biscuit. So I've got to get some. But I've got a question for you, because it's Christmas nearly, 1st of December, so it feels like Christmas. And so my question today is, every year there's a Christmas tree in Trafalgar Square, comes over from Norway, we all know that. But what I want to know today is, how tall is the tree in Trafalgar Square this year? That's what I want to know. How tall is the tree in Trafalgar Square this year? And I'll take that in meters or feet. And I haven't really got an exact answer, but it's quite close. So meters or feet, how tall is the Christmas tree in Trafalgar Square? And as a bonus question, actually, how many lights are on it? How many lights are on it? And 57 foot, 350 foot. Crofty's back with a ridiculous guess. How many lights do you reckon, Matt? 5,000? 5,000 lights. It's really surprising, the lights one, actually. I was very surprised. That was going to be my question. Because the thing, I'll give you another chance, Clara, actually, because the thing is, the lights are big. I've genuinely got no idea what that comment is. Oh, I see, including the fairy at the top. Right, okay, I see. So big old fairy at the top. Because the lights are big, you know, they're not like fairy lights like we have on our tree. So, yeah, so how many lights are on the tree? Yeah. Which is, yeah. So they're like more like massive balls, really, I suppose. Anyway, 400 lights, 57 foot, 350 foot. From Crofty. So if anybody else wants to have a remotely sensible guess, that'd be brilliant. Crofty, the first man to get banned from tea at 3. So today, empathy and determination. That's what we're going to talk about. And I was reading something, which was quite interesting, and it was about leadership, and it was called The Happy Warrior. And this spoke directly about empathy and determination. From the happy point of view, of course, that's the empathy, and from the determination, that's the warrior. So the happy warrior. So now, that probably all leadership theories that were, you know, that and there's loads out there, but they're primarily focused around task and people. The question, Kev, was, how tall is the Christmas tree in Trafalgar Square this year? And I'll take feet or meters. And there was a subsidiary question, which is, how many lights are on the tree in Trafalgar Square? 10 meters, 200 lights, 68 feet, but I didn't hear the question. That's absolutely hilarious there. 12 and a half meters. So we're kind of lots of answers today, which is great. So that happy warrior thing is quite a nice little phrase, just to think about it. And like I said, most leadership models go around task and people, and we tend to have a preference for one or the other. That could be like a big preference, task over people, or the other way around, or a bit more hovered. Now, some people are quite balanced, and that's kind of the happy warrior. Task leaders tend to drive. They're very driven by achieving things. They set a vision, they drive it, all that kind of stuff. So get a lot of business startup, determined leaders, very task-focused leaders, that kind of relentlessness to keep going for the goal. So they're pretty much up and at it. The empathetic leaders, a lot more warmth, a lot more understanding, and they connect with people that whole lot more. So they build like maybe greater rapport, all that kind of stuff. Whenever you kind of think about leaders, you know, and when I was researching this and looking at what a determined leader looks like, constantly Jobs comes out. Steve Jobs comes out. It's quite any kind of information around determination. But he was seen as stubborn. That's not a criticism. That's an observation that a lot of people talk about his stubbornness, which made him a real determined leader, and it's a real trait of it. He had some lovely little phrases as well. He said hiring people was a game of chess, not checkers. So it was a long game thing. So he took a lot of time and effort to get the right people around him to kind of be pushed through to what he believed. Now, the downside, as recorded by some people, is he was too driven on that goal. So there's talk of a lack of empathy within Apple. But the situation we currently find ourselves now, of course, we're seeking empathetic leaders. The last 8 months are times when we want those empathetic leaders. Why do we want them? Well, because they create a few things. Empathetic leaders create loyal staff. They create engaged staff, happy staff, staff willing to work with each other, who will in turn often become more creative. Although having said that, of course, Jobs was very, he was a driven leader and hugely creative, but it's seen that empathy and that vulnerability that we spoke about last week can create a more creative environment. So what does that empathetic leader do? Well, they face troubles without being troubled. And again, that was a nice phrase that I picked up. They face troubles without being troubled. So that they will tackle those issues, but the face that they put out to the people looks less troubled. They confidently exude belief that they will overcome those barriers. Now, something that I've spoken about, this is tier 3, number 44, and I've probably mentioned this before, but anything when we talk about empathy and working with people, keep the communication channels open. I said it only last week. I said the curious leader would sooner fail big than try small. They just want to keep trying. They want to keep communicating. You can sometimes under communicate, but I think at the moment I think it's tough to over communicate at the moment. Listen and acknowledge others. I think determined leaders sometimes listen well, and they hear the words coming from the people around them. But I think that empathetic leader also acknowledges, takes on ideas, and lets people know. And again, when I look at determined leaders, some of the things that are advocated by a determined leader is almost keep a very close group together, whereas the empathetic leader broadens it right out. So that listen and acknowledge others is crucial. And no blame game. The empathetic leader has no blame. They're always looking at what can we do to make it better? How can we improve it? Not where did it go wrong? So, and I think I've worked with a variety of leaders, some who will constantly say, well, okay, let's see what happened. Whereas others have said, so who did what? And both want it to be better, but the determined leader tends to want to find the person who did it wrong and make them better, that kind of thing. The empathetic leader is very sincere. They live by their values. Value-driven leaders are empathetic. Everything they do, they say, they behave is based around their values. And how they speak is a whole lot more conversational. And I think the tools that we have available and we've become very familiar with over the past few months have helped that empathetic leader by the way they communicate, by the way they speak, and the different tools that they've got. Something like this invites a more conversation tone. Now, then on the flip side of that, it's like, so what's a determined leader? And again, if you just have a look for who's a determined leader, you see a lot of familiar names come up. And I just wrote down a couple of things that I pulled off. Quotes: never ever give in. Winston Churchill seems determined. Strength comes from indomitable will by Gandhi. There is no substitute for hard work. Edison. I believe in luck. The harder I work, the more I have. And that initiated from Jefferson, but a host of people have said something like it, tweaked it in sport, and that's pure determination. So what do determined leaders do? Well, they tend to have that very small group of people they trust. They have a lot of people working for them, and they kind of believe in the same cause, but the determined leader keeps it really quite tight. They don't compromise. They go for the goal. And like I say, they will not run into a blind wall, because a determined leader is great, but they have this unwavering belief that what they are doing is correct. So they won't give up. They will keep going. And by doing that, they will push others to achieve. It's determination. And you see this in sport where people are almost dragging other people along. Their determination becomes contagious, and they drag, quite literally in sport, they drag people to the finish line with them, so that we'll get the best out of them. Cruel to be kind, all that kind of thing. Seen that in a football club I attend regularly. Somebody who kind of really encourages by almost verbally beating the people to maximise, to respond, and that pure determination and grit works. They take flack because they put themselves in a position where flack is going to fly. And again, in leadership, and when we talk about these determined leaders, a lot comes out of things like battle and stuff like that. So you see, it doesn't take a great leader to send men into battle. It takes a great leader to be in battle, and those kind of things. So they take some flack, they put it in there, and they kind of stand up. They're brave in the very face of fear. Now, if we try and bring a lot of those things, they're just counterintuitive, because how can I be determined when also I've got to be empathetic? And that's the kind of thing. It is the seesaw. And certain situations will require for a higher level of empathy, and certain situations will require a high level of determination. And the balanced leader will get those two things right. So counterintuitively, they don't sit. Paradoxically, they're wrong. But just like the others we've looked at, curiosity and decisiveness, you have to be good at them both to be the best you can be. Now, the next pair that we're going to look at next week, and I'm going to try and do these up till Christmas, is going to be about action and inclusion. So that's another paradox for a leader. Do I crack on and do it, or do I get my people to help? And we'll have a look at those two things. So that's the two I'm going to cover. Now, how big was the tree? Now, there's quite a few guesses there. Obviously, we could just disregard Crofties, but quite interestingly, Kev Hutchinson came in with 68 feet, but I didn't hear the question. That was the closest. So there's probably some method here. The tree this year is 75.5 feet, which is about 23 meters. And lights wise, I'll give Hutch what's going on, because it's got 500 lights on it, and you guessed 498, which is absolutely frightening in your second guess. So it's just 500 lights on that tree, and there's probably people at home with 500 lights on their own little 7-footer. So 500 lights, 23 meters tall. It's never less than 20 meters apparently. I do believe it's up. Yeah, absolutely. But just like many things in life, Kev, you win absolutely nothing. So thanks for joining me, everyone. Yeah, it's good work there, isn't it? So next week, action and inclusion. Thanks for joining me. I'm going to enjoy my tea. Enjoy the rest of your day. Hope you get your own Christmas trees up, and I will see you next week. Thank you so much, everyone.